Hi everyone, this is Ms. Granger. In this video, we're going to go over the second section of Lesson 5. Lesson 5 is all about expansion and isolation. This video is going to cover the topic of Japan. Remember, for each slide, you'll follow the directions for what to annotate on the pear deck and answer any questions on your note paper. Remember, if we see the little pear icon, it means that we need to do whatever it says here. And if we see the little paper icon, we are going to then respond on our paper. Let's get started. So I'm on slide 11, and we're talking about Japan. We're going to read through the text and complete the activity. So first I see that I'm going to be doing something on Pear Deck. It says, highlight all the different social categories of feudal Japan. Let's get started reading. For centuries, Japan had been a feudal society, much like medieval Europe. Local lords, known as daimyo, controlled large landed estates. They relied on armies of samurai warriors to defend their land and settle disputes with other lords. At the top of this feudal structure was the emperor, who claimed descent from a mythical sun goddess. But real power rested in the hands of the shogun, a military leader who ruled on behalf of the emperor and demanded the allegiance of the daimyo. In theory, the daimyo respected the shogun's authority, but the system was unstable. I know that I'm looking for highlighting the different social categories. So I'll click my highlighter and I'm going to look for all the different ones. So the first one up here is the daimyo. And the daimyo, again, we're kind of in this region of the social pyramid, if you will. They were landowners. They controlled the samurai, but there were others. So we'll go through the rest of this passage here, and you're going to find one more social structure here, and then you'll find two more in the second paragraph. So there should be 4 things that you're highlighting. Pause the video and do that now. Our next slide here is 12, and it's really talking about how gunpowder was used in Japan. We learned about this in other civilizations, so now we'll see about this one. See that I'll be answering the question on Pear Deck, what was the first gunpowder weapon that got the most use in Japan? Let's read. During the Age of Warring States in the 1400s, gunpowder weapons were widely introduced in Japan. Gunpowder weapons had been used in Japan previously. This was by the Mongols during their failed invasions in the 13th century. During the 1400s and early 1500s, merchants and travelers brought some guns from China to Japan. However, gunpowder weapons, particularly guns, did not gain wider attention or use until the arrival of the musket through the Portuguese in 1543. Until the 1500s, gunpowder and gunpowder weapons, including guns, were not that popular. There were other ways of battle, and the Japanese didn't quite get the significance of it, I suppose, until 1543. So answer the question from the Pear Deck here. You're going to find the answer in this second paragraph. Pause and do that now. We're on slide 13 now. We're going to continue to talk about the musket, which was that really popular weapon introduced to Japan. So news of this weapon, the musket, spread around Japan. Muskets were soon manufactured or made in many parts of the country, and saltpeter for gunpowder became an important import from China. Within decades of the musket's introduction, thousands of guns were being produced annually in Japan. Daimyo eagerly sought these new weapons as the conflicts of the Age of the Warring States intensified. In the 1600s, the Tokugawa unified Japan and brought a long period of peace and stability to the country. To ensure stability, the Tokugawa rulers formed a strong, centralized government. Centralized means that the power was really with one person or group at the top. They established controls on the daimyo and Japanese society that allowed them to govern effectively. So I see that I'm highlighting the name of the ruling family in Japan. I should see that in the second paragraph here. And then on my paper, I see that I'm filling out military and political. Remember, military is anything that a group of people are doing to take control or take over or control with force. Political means government. So in military, you might want to consider what was being done during the Age of the Warring States. And for political, might want to consider what this ruling family did in order to keep power. So pause the video and answer these two things now. Now on this slide 14, I see that I'll pause, but I'm not doing anything on Pear Deck. I'm just filling something out on my paper. So I'm looking to see, I'm going to fill out the social row on my paper. Social meaning groups of people, or how are groups of people organized. So I'm going to be thinking about that as I read through the slide. The Tokugawa also established a rigid social culture consisting of 4 social classes. At the top was the warrior class of lords and samurai, which made up about 7% of the population. Next came farmers, considered the most productive part of society. Artisans made up the 3rd class, and at the bottom were merchants. An elaborate code of etiquette laid out rules for the dress and behavior of each class. In principle, social mobility, or moving up and down in society, was rare in Japan. This rigid structure was designed to ensure social order and respect for authority. Now, it's really interesting that at the top were the lords and the samurai, but after them came the farmers, the people that we typically would consider in the kind of bottom class. They're working the land, they don't need higher skills to do so, but in Japan it was very honorable to be a farmer and to provide sustenance and food, which is why they were considered the 2nd tier of people. Artisans, or people who make goods, kind of specialized categories. They're making clothes and tools, artisans, art. They make up underneath that. This was considered less important than farmers because farmers, again, are providing this essential need for the population. And then the bottom were merchants. Now, probably the merchants were one of the more wealthy social classes, but this was not considered as honorable because you're kind of doing things for yourself as opposed to providing food, like the farmers, for greater populations. So just kind of a different way of thinking about social structures. Remember to pause now and fill out the social row on your paper. We have a couple of questions here. One is answering the question in the Pear Deck: which religion already existed in Japan before the 500s? So I'm looking for religion, I'm looking for 500s, and I know I'll answer over here. I'm also seeing that I will fill out my cultural row on my paper and also fill out the expansion column. So cultural row, expansion column. As early as 500 CE, Chinese culture was making its mark over Japan. Over time, the Japanese combined Chinese customs with their own traditions to form a unique Japanese culture. For example, in the mid-500s, some Japanese adopted Buddhism, which arrived from Korea via China. Yet they did not abandon their original religion, Shinto. Instead, each religion thrived and embraced elements of the other. China's influence on Japan greatly increased after Empress Suiko and Prince Shotoku came to power in 593. In particular, Shotoku encouraged the Japanese to embrace cultures from mainland Asia, especially from China and Korea, and following rulers did as well. Knowledge of mainland culture came from Japanese travelers returning from China, as well as from items sent from the mainland to Japan. Let's just look at a map real quick to make sure we understand where all these things are. So we're discussing Japan, and Japan is over here off the coast, and then know that this Prince Shotoku really encouraged trade and products incoming from mainland China over here, and also from Korea, which at the time was kind of one unified force. Right now it's North Korea and South Korea, but this Korean peninsula with Japan and China kind of made this little triangle of expanded trade. So in the Pear Deck, answer this question. You're going to find the answer up in this first paragraph, so check there. You're also going to fill in the cultural row, and I would suggest that we look up again at this first paragraph. I know we talk about Japanese embracing cultures from Asia, and that's great, but this just says embracing culture. It doesn't tell us specifically what that is. So check out the first paragraph for the culture row, and the second paragraph for the expansion column. Pause the video and do that now. Let's continue. During the Tokugawa era, various art forms native to Japan flourished. Kabuki is a form of theater that combines elaborate costumes, music, and dance. It became popular in Japanese cities. Visual artists created beautiful woodblock prints showing scenes from urban and rural life, and writers and poets explored new forms of literature, including short verse called haiku. You're going to highlight all the different art that emerged in Japan during this time, and then fill out something else in your cultural row. There's lots of culture here. Just pick one item of Japanese culture to fill in. Pause and do that now. Down here I see that I'm going to pause, but just write on my paper this time. I'm looking for economic information and also information I can put in my isolation column. Isolation, remember, is being cut off or not communicating or not with other groups. At first, the Tokugawa rulers remained open to foreign influence. They became alarmed, however, when the Japanese began to convert to Catholicism, or being Catholic. Religious intolerance spread in the form of expelling the missionaries and cracking down on Christian converts. This xenophobia, or fear of foreigners, started to affect commercial exchange when the government also began to restrict trade. By 1638, it had expelled most European traders, limiting trade to just one port. Only the Dutch were allowed to visit, and only once or twice a year. The government also prohibited the Japanese from traveling abroad and outlawed the building of large ships. So economic, we can find how the government dealt with trade in this paragraph here, the second paragraph. And also there are several examples of how they started to become more isolated. So choose one from this second paragraph and write that in your isolation column. Pause the video and do that now. All right, here's our last slide. We're going to be highlighting the positive impacts of isolation in red and highlighting the negative impacts of isolationism in blue. So grab your red highlighter and we'll start to do that. For the next 2 centuries, Japan was effectively isolated from the rest of the world. This policy of isolation was beneficial in that it helped Tokugawa rulers preserve Japanese traditions and maintain control. But the negative impact was that it also prevented Japan from gaining useful knowledge from abroad. Here we have positive and negative, so be ready to highlight. By the 19th century, many began to worry about Japan's lack of modern weaponry. Then, in 1853, lacking the defenses to resist, meaning they couldn't say no, Japan was forced to open up to foreign trade by U.S. warships. However, those seeking to rid the country of foreigners realized that they did not have the adequate means to do so by force. They physically could not get them out. Some then turned to overthrow the Tokugawa government. As this movement gained power, the last shogun or ruler resigned, ending the Tokugawa period. So highlight the positive impacts of isolation in red and highlight the negative impacts in blue. You'll find those 2 items up here in this first paragraph. This slide just asks you to stop and make sure you filled out all the columns and rows on your paper. If that's not the case, go back through the slideshow and find what you missed so that you can make sure to have some kind of information for each different area. Good luck, and make sure to ask your teacher for help if you need it.